Hi, and welcome to another pickup video. I know it's been a long time since my last one, but I've been a bit busy, as I mentioned in my vlog. Now you may be thinking, what has your laundry room got to do with video games? What's the whole purpose of this? Well, I thought I'd try something a little bit different and mix it up a bit, and rather than just sitting in front of my computer chatting to you, I'd show you some other parts of the flat. And the reason for this is I was inspired by Blue Tonic 78, and one of the videos that he put out must be more than 2 months ago now, where he was just in his kitchen putting away his groceries, chatting to the camera, and I thought that that was one of my favourite videos I've seen from him, and I wanted to try something a little similar myself. But before we get on to gaming, I just got to finish the washing. And there is one more thing before we get to the games. Like Pete Sneztastic, I need a cup of tea. Now I'm going to have some Chinese green tea, but in true British style, it comes in a bag. Pretty good. Let's go check out those games. Now, all of the titles I'm going to be talking about today are for the PlayStation 3, so if you're not really interested in PlayStation 3 games, it's probably not really worth you watching this video, but if you are, stick around because I've got quite a few of them to talk about. Now, all of them bar one are games that I picked up on my trip to Hong Kong back in February. I went there over the Chinese New Year holiday. I mentioned that in the vlog, so if you saw that, I was talking about my trip to Foshan and Hong Kong. I was only there for a couple of days just renewing my visa, but it gave me an opportunity to go shopping for games. And as I've mentioned before, in China there's not such a great deal of the newest titles available, although saying that though, PlayStation 3 games are probably the easiest things to get your hands on because the console hasn't been properly hacked. Getting genuine Xbox 360 games is pretty difficult because all of the shops selling games have got all the knockoffs instead of the real ones, because lots of people over here have got modified or chipped Xboxes and Wiis. But I don't want to go down that route. I prefer, like many of you do, to collect the legitimate titles. So I've got 7 games, or well, actually it's more than 7 games, because a couple of them are compilation discs, and I've also got one demo to talk about. But let's go out onto the balcony. It's a bit nicer out there, and I can sit down and tell you all about them. So, let's go. Now there's one more thing that I forgot completely, and that was that I've got a new TV. Last time I spoke to you guys, I had, well, I've still got it, it's in the bedroom, a Toshiba 29-inch TV. And although for playing kind of PlayStation 2 and standard definition games, it's a fantastic TV. The picture quality is awesome. For PlayStation 3 and high definition gaming, it's not very good. Luckily, you can use a component cable with it. So I've got one of those for the PlayStation 3. Oh, it's actually the one I use with the PlayStation 2. And plugged it in, and I was surprised by how good the picture quality was. But with a lot of these games, they've got like small head-up displays and text that needs to be read, and it's kind of painful on the eyes, looks a bit blurred, a bit out of focus. So I decided to get myself a new HD TV. Now, I don't know whether I've mentioned it in a previous video, but back in the UK, I had a Panasonic PG10, or I can't remember the exact model number, but it was a pretty good middle of the road Panasonic 50-inch TV. I was really happy with it. Lucky I sold it, went to a family member. But here, I would love to have replaced it with the equivalent model that's out today, but it would be even more expensive to buy that TV here than it would back in the UK. So I'd be looking at spending probably £1,500, at least £1,200 to buy a decent Panasonic 50-inch plasma. So I went for a much cheaper option, and that is a locally produced television. One of the local electronics companies, one of China's biggest, is called Changhong. I don't think they sell them in the UK. If they do sell their TVs, they're probably under a different brand name, and I have no idea what it is. There are probably 6 or 7 reasonably well-known Chinese brands that are known here in China. And you go to the local electronics stores and there are just, not hundreds, but probably where I went, there were 40 or 50 TVs along this wall to choose from. And I picked this one because it seemed to have better picture quality than a lot of the other TVs in that price range. Unfortunately, when I got it home, I realized it's actually a smart TV and a 3D TV. Two features that I really didn't want. The 3D I've used once. I've tried it on one of these games because it's the only game I've got that's 3D compatible. And the smart TV features, it's completely pointless when you've got a PlayStation 3 and an Apple TV. What do you need its built-in smart functions for? Actually, the smart element of it is the most annoying thing because it takes about 40 seconds to boot up before you can start using it. It's so frustrating. And this TV probably cost more than an equivalent Chinese-made TV would cost in the UK. This was £440, which does seem a bit extreme, but it is much better for playing HD games on, and Blu-rays look fairly good on it as well, so I'm kind of happy. Would have liked to have had a plasma, but I was thinking more about my bank account than about quality. By the time I get back to the UK, OLED TVs and 4K TVs are going to be pretty commonplace, so I'll be getting one of those when I get back. Anyway, enough TV talk. Let's talk about these games. Well, this comes as no surprise, as usual. My Berman is sleeping. Well, no, not quite sleeping, but luxuriating in my chair. But he's just too cute to uproot and throw out. And luckily, there's another chair in here, so might as well just go and sit over there. Okay, well, I think the first game I'll talk about is the one that's not really a game. It's actually a demo, and that is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. And that's a hell of a mouthful. And this is a game that I'd seen demos of, or I'd seen video footage of, and had been quite impressed by the technical ability of what the creators had put together. The graphics looked very nice. It looked like kind of a slick and interesting beat 'em up kind of game. Playing it though, now this, I have to say, this is actually a Japanese version. It's a Japanese import of the demo, and there's no English in it at all. So the story at the beginning of the demo, I guess it's setting it up and explaining what it's all about, I didn't understand. and since haven't even bothered to go and find out what it was all about. So that element was lost on me. I didn't really understand what I was doing, apart from the fact that I was this kind of robo ninja guy with white hair and I have to go and chop lots of people up with my big sword. And that's about all it is. And yeah, it's kind of cool for a couple of minutes, and it has this interesting lock-on feature where you can dice your enemies into multiple pieces. But I have to say, I got bored of this by the end of the demo, and I was not at all interested in picking up the full game. Now, maybe the full game is absolutely outstanding, but it just felt a bit like a very beautiful button masher to me. But yeah, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is not something I'm going to rush to get. It's actually something I have seen in the local computer markets here, and have no interest in buying. But luckily the demo was only 40 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £3.50, I think. No, not £3.50, £4.40, something like that. It's about 11 to the pound. Or is it? No, I lie. It's about 13 to the pound, so it's less than that. Yeah, so not expensive at all. Okay. Now, the next title I picked up is something I'd been wanting to get for a while for the PlayStation 3, and that is Super Street Fighter 4. I've got Street Fighter 4 on the Xbox 360, and it's good, but I don't have an arcade stick for the 360, and most of you are aware the annoying feature of the Xbox 360, one of the annoying features is that you can't just plug in peripherals from anybody and hope that they will work like you can with the PlayStation 3. So all of the PC/PlayStation 3 arcade sticks that I can find at my local markets won't work on the Xbox. And obviously back in the UK where I had my Xbox 360, that was an issue. And I didn't want to spend out a lot of money getting one when I could just use and Darren Walshock will probably mention this for me bringing this up again, my Namco arcade stick that I got for £4 from one of the local car boot sales back in the UK. That with a PS1 or PS2 to USB adapter can be used with a PlayStation 3, and so fighting games work perfectly well on that. Unfortunately, I don't have it here with me. It was a little bit too much to put in the suitcase with all the other things. Not for me, it was my wife who brought the PlayStation 3 back, and she didn't have any space for quite a bulky arcade stick. But I can pick up an arcade stick from the local market when I get the desire to really get into Street Fighter 4. But for 48 Hong Kong dollars, about £4, not bad at all. And I've played it a bit, and it's good on the PlayStation 3 controller. It's an interesting host of more characters that have been added to Street Fighter 4. So yeah, I really like the inclusion of Guy, although Cody is not really like I remember him from Final Fight, but definitely the character Guy is, and very cool, fast becoming a new Street Fighter favourite for me. Now the next two discs are kind of connected because they're from the same series, so I'll talk about those together, and that is the Hitman HD trilogy and also Hitman Absolution. And I was well aware that Hitman Absolution was coming out, and I really wanted to be able to play the Hitman games on a console because I haven't really experienced that. I've got all of the previous Hitman games on the PC, and I suppose I just could have brought those with me and used them on my Mac running Windows, but I wanted to give it a go and see what the games are like on the PlayStation 3, and I have to admit that Hitman has aged a bit. This series doesn't have the original Hitman game. It's Hitman 2, Hitman Contracts, which was the third game released, and Hitman Blood Money, which is by far my favourite title in the series. And the fact that the first one is missing as far as I'm concerned, isn't really a bad thing. I suppose it would be nice to have the whole complete series, but it was never released on the PlayStation 2, and so these are obviously just upscaled or high resolution versions of the PlayStation 2 games. But the Silent Assassin, the second of the Hitman games, is also a favourite of mine. It was really nice to be able to go back and play some of my favourite missions from this. I haven't got into it extensively because, as I said, it seems to have aged a little bit, and time hasn't been as kind to Hitman as it could have been, and I think that's why they decided to release Hitman Absolution and give it a kind of reworking and change the combat system a little bit, and obviously update the graphics so it looks more current gen. Hitman Absolution I haven't played extensively. I've played the first few missions of it, and I'm really impressed with it, but it's not Hitman, and I don't know whether it's not Hitman of old, and I don't know for sure yet whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It seems more like more of a shooter than a stealth game, but I suppose playing it on the harder levels, you really need to employ stealth or you just get absolutely wasted. Definitely worth the £20 I paid for this one, and I think the Hitman trilogy was also about £20. You could argue that that's not really worth it for someone who's got these games on the PC already, but I didn't mind shelling out for those because it's one of those titles that I feel I can come back to time and time again and dip into it and get some enjoyment out of it. Now, the next game that I got was something I've been wanting to play for ages, and I can remember Interghost Adam saying to me, "Oh, you've got to play Uncharted 3. How could you not have played it, considering you enjoyed the first two games so much?" And yeah, it has taken me a while to get round to getting this, and I have played it a fair bit, but I haven't completed the game yet. It's more of the same, you know, all of the quality that you would expect from Naughty Dog, and if you've enjoyed the previous titles, I'm pretty sure you would enjoy this as well. They've taken the graphics to an even higher level than they did before, and the attention to detail is one of the things I like most about this. There's a flashback sequence where you get to play Drake as a kid, right near the beginning. I don't really want to spoil the story for you, but there, some of the attention to detail where he's walking around a museum, and as he walks past cabinets, he brushes his hand against the cabinets, and whenever you run towards something and it is as if you're going to bump into it, he'll put his hands up, and it's just little things like that that really make it feel as if the characters are inhabiting the environment they're in, rather than the character and the location being two separate things that you often find in many video games. The story, from what I've experienced so far, is solid. The gameplay is relatively good, but I always feel with the Uncharted games that the gameplay seems to take a bit of a backseat to the storytelling, and I'm more than happy with that because I love the stories that they've got to tell. They're great adventures, and I love the characters in this, especially Drake and Sully, his older, not partner, I don't want to sound like they're gay, but his business partner. They flesh out those stories, the backstories of those characters even more, which is fantastic, and introduce a couple of new characters along the way. So, yeah, really, really good. The only thing I feel lets the Uncharted series down from a gameplay perspective is some of the fighting elements of it. They don't really play that well after having played some other games where fighting, I mean, I know it's such a small part of this game, but comparing to how well the characters handle in the fight sequences compared to something like Batman, this is very poor in comparison. But everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is fantastic. Okay, now this next game, or, well, it's a compilation of 3 games. Actually, that's not true, because there are 3 more mini games on there as well. It's Journey, the Collector's Edition, and this Journey particularly is a game that I've wanted to play ever since hearing about the initial development stories and what they were planning to do with it. It really is an amazingly beautiful experience. In fact, not only Journey, but also Flower. In fact, I'll talk about that first, because I was completely stunned by how beautiful that game is. I was really not expecting the experience of, well, as ridiculous as it sounds, being the wind, because that's what you are in this game. You're the wind blowing through a meadow or a field, picking up petals off of the flowers as you go, and you build up a chain of petals, and you just fly around, and the object is to touch all of the flowers so they open, and that allows you to access new areas of the field. And finally, you have to bring a tree to life. Sounds weird. It is weird, but it's just an amazing experience. That it's so well done. That the feeling of playing that game for the first time, I have to equate to the experience of playing Space Harrier for the first time. That I was left gobsmacked by how the game just took me and sucked me into this world. And I suppose in the way that Space Harrier has all the colours and the bright world that you're hurtling through, this has that too. There's nothing to shoot, there's no monsters, but the experience of exhilaration and speed is handled so beautifully in Flower. It's a brilliant game in its own right, but you also get these other titles as well. Flow I haven't really played much, so I'm not going to bother talking about that, but it is an interesting title in its own right. But Journey is the reason that I bought this and spent a little under £20 picking up this set. And I don't think it's too much of an overstatement to say that this game, or this disc alone, is enough reason to own a PlayStation 3. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because it's sort of a minimum of about £180 to go out and buy a PlayStation 3, but I believe it's worth owning that console to play these games because they are exclusive titles. And I'm sure many of you would agree that the PlayStation 3, out of all of the current generation systems, has the best exclusive titles. Well, maybe you could argue, if you're a Nintendo fan, maybe you would feel that not being able to play Mario Galaxy or the Zelda games would be a travesty, and that you would rather have one of their systems. But I feel that games like this and the Uncharted series and Heavy Rain are just examples of what's great about the PlayStation, and I think those of us that own them are lucky that titles like this exist for it. I don't really want to tell you too much about Journey, because it is an experience that I think you have to have yourself and interpret it and understand it for yourself. But it's a story that's told without any words, and I think that allows you to, as I said, interpret what the story is all about. It is a journey in a far off, I guess, on a far off world, or in another time or another dimension. I don't really know, but beautiful is what it is, and I couldn't be happier with £20 being spent on a video game than that. But having said that, the next title is the one I've actually spent the most time playing, and the one I was most looking forward to getting. And those of you that have seen my 6th and last Gamers Living Room episode, I do actually intend to make some more of those at some time in the future, but as most of my gaming equipment is not here, it will probably be another year before I make another one of those episodes. But those of you that have seen it will know how much I love the original XCOM Enemy Unknown, and I was thrilled to get this and to play this reimagining of the XCOM game, and to see that they've done it so well. It's not the same game. I honestly would have been happy if they'd just taken the original game and redone the graphics in high resolution, and I would have been happy with that. But they've taken some things away, they've simplified the game, but I think they haven't really lost anything in the simplification. A lot of what made the game enjoyable, a lot of the tension, a lot of the kind of scary elements that the original game had, this has it in spades. And what they've added is really quite cool. I mean, you might not agree that the action cam cut sequences are good. I think they're a step in the right direction to making turn-based games enjoyable for the masses. And although they are telegraphed in so much that once you see these sequences again and again and again, you know as soon as the kind of cutscene plays, you know what the outcome's going to be. You know whether your sniper is going to hit or miss the target, which is something they need to work on. They need to make it less predictable, but it really does make you feel like you're there in the action. It's got a very good story, closely matches, although it's not exactly the same as the story from the original game, but it's kind of close to it. Some of the things that are much better about this game is that the squad is customizable. Before in the original game you could give them names, but now you can customize what the characters look like, which I think is very cool. One of the few gripes that I've got with it is that they reduced the squad size, and I felt one of the things about XCOM was that the aliens were always more powerful, but the one thing you could do is just throw bodies at a situation, that you could take your dropship and land it and have 15 soldiers in there, whereas now the maximum squad members you can take on any one mission is 6, and it feels a little bit unfair, especially when you're playing on the harder levels, which are too difficult for me. I'm really glad that they put that level of difficulty in it, because as many of you have argued, that games have become a little bit too easy these days, and it's nice to see they respected the difficulty of the original game and have included difficulty levels to match that. I've had to play it on the easier levels to be able to get through to the end, but I've played through the game. I played it once and got thoroughly defeated, dropped the difficulty level down a bit and played through it again and got to the end of the game, and I will definitely play through the game again sometime soon. It's a quality title. It cost about £25, but I don't begrudge a penny of it, because I got plenty of value for money out of that. So the last of the games I'm going to talk about today is something that I picked up here in Chengdu. It's the first game I've bought here in Chengdu, and that is Max Payne 3. Now, this is a game that I've wanted to play for, well, as long as I've known that it was in development. I've always been a big fan of the original Max Payne games on the PC. Really enjoyed playing those. Love the kind of cheesy noir style narration that it's got in it. There's just something about the feel of the Max Payne character, the tone. There's a lot I really enjoy about playing those games, and to see this come out now after so many years, I was intrigued. And then as I saw more of the production shots of how they'd changed Max Payne, I wanted to play it even more. And I must say, having played what I have, I mean, I only bought the game yesterday and I only started playing it this morning. So I've played through the beginning of the game, seen the opening of the story, played through the first chapter, started the second chapter, and I really like it. I love the fact that they've still kept elements of Max Payne. It feels like a Max Payne game. It sounds like a Max Payne game. To some extent, it looks like a Max Payne game. But they've set it in a new environment rather than it being kind of New York, New Jersey. It's now, or at least at the beginning of the game, as far as I know, maybe all of it is, it's in South America. And it just gives the whole Max Payne story a complete, fresh, new feel to it. Everything about, setting it that many years later, Max being older, being a kind of broken man, the visual style they've chosen for it. There's so far I haven't found anything that I don't like about it, and for £16, I think it's very, money very well spent. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing through this, and I will probably do a kind of review or reflection video on it once I've got to the end of it, because it is my intention to, rather than doing a pickup of a lot of games like this and playing bits and pieces of them, I'm going to allow myself one new game every month, and for the first few months it will definitely be PlayStation 3 games, because I don't have any of, well, apart from PlayStation 2, I don't have any of my other machines with me. I don't even know if the PlayStation 2 is region locked or not, but I know that the PlayStation 3 isn't, so I can happily buy games here in Chengdu. They're all imported from Hong Kong, so they'll all be in English as well as Chinese. Or sometimes they import them from the States here as well. So there's plenty of games out there for me to buy. I think the next one I'm going to get is the new Tomb Raider game. I almost bought that yesterday actually, but the guy wanted £28 or £29 for it rather than £16 for that one, and sort of my cheap side won out, and I bought Max Payne 3. As I said, happy with that. I'm sure I'll enjoy Tomb Raider. I've heard a lot of good things about that too, but that'll have to wait for next month. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for sticking with my video this far. As always, I'd like to know what you think, your comments about any of the games, your experiences of playing them. Don't spoil the endings of them for me, because I haven't finished Uncharted 3 or Max Payne 3 or Hitman Absolution, so I don't want to know what the ends are, but by all means tell me whether you've enjoyed or hated any of those games. Also, what do you think about this kind of long form video? I know some of you hate longer videos, but some of you have said that you really like them. And also the sort of the change of style, me walking around the apartment and just chatting to you guys. I don't know whether you thought that was any good or whether you hated it, thought it was really cheesy. Again, I'd like to know. But just want to say thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. From my balcony to wherever you are, this is Simon signing off. Bye-bye.